Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Because we care for one another's safety, our congregation is gathering online during this long season of coronavirus pandemic. Nevertheless, through the gifts of technology, we continue to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love. Arise, O souls, arise. Good morning, and welcome to All Souls Online Worship Gathering for January 9th, 2022. It is a pleasure to welcome back to our pulpit this morning the Reverend Jack Gaede, who served our congregation as a ministerial intern during the 2017-18 program year. Jack is now in his fourth year as one of the ministers at White Bear UU Church in Matamidi, Minnesota, a suburb of St. Paul. Our congregation benefited from Jack's vision for ministry with youth and young adults, and I am eager to hear his reflections this morning on endings and beginnings. It's lovely to have you back with us today, Jack.
Hello, good morning, All Souls, Kansas City. It is so good to be with you on this cool January morning. I can't be with you in person, but I'm so glad to be with you on video. Thank you, Kendall, for the lovely invitation to preach this morning. And for those of you who haven't met me before, I was your intern back in 2017 and 2018, which seems like an entire lifetime ago. This morning, we're going to think together about the cycles of beginnings and endings. It's obviously very close to the new year, and the cycles of the year are turning along with the cycles of the seasons. The news cycles continue, and you may or may not make resolutions at this time, which may or may not cycle all the way through to completion. Just yesterday, I listened to a song, a great song about 2021, which reminded me that on our 6th day, we had an insurrection. Can you even believe that happened a full year ago? A lot can happen in a year. Because of that, we are going to be pondering a few questions today. When is a time you faced a big ending or a new beginning? How did it go, and what did you learn? What rituals and practices keep you grounded in times of great change? I so look forward to being with you today from my sanctuary here in Matamidi, Minnesota, where I sit on the land of the Anishinaabe people. Come in today to this place of worship and reflection. Come in with all of who you are, where you search out to find who you are called to be. Let's gather together in wonder and joy.
Now let's join together in speaking once again our covenant promises to this community. Together we affirm,
goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Today's offering goes to support All Souls UU, which has been a place where young and upcoming ministers like myself have learned more about the ministry. Your gift today will help sustain this congregation and their ability to continue to offer internships to folks on the path to ministry. Please be generous as we support this faith that we share.
Let's say together the words of dedication for our offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
Good morning. I'm Marley Murphy. Today's reading is from Carmela Woodrich. She's a young Australian poet who has found her voice and an audience in an unlikely place by posting her work on Instagram. This is called Endings, Beginnings. Today, just like any other day, is an ending and a beginning in itself. And nothing could be more terrifying, exhilarating, or unquestionably beautiful. Because today, just like yesterday, no different from tomorrow, represents both an opening and a closing, a start and an end, rise and a fall, a prelude and a finale, a birth of new chances, and a death of old regrets. But it's also a gamble and a risk to end the things that hurt and begin that plunge at a new shot at love, to choose what to wake up for and who to say goodbye to look for light in between every crack, to make mosaic ceilings out of the shattered glass, and maybe, just maybe, to find tiny slivers of life in death.
A Blessing for Those Who Hold Space by Heather Plett. You are the ones who live wholeheartedly and courageously. You are the ones who dare to dive beneath the surface of human emotions. You are the ones who show up and keep showing up, even when grief is as vast as an ocean and fear is as unmanageable as a volcano. You are the ones who reach past the known to hold that which is liminal, nebulous, and layered in complexity. Whenever you do this hard and holy work, whenever you show up with your hands trembling and your heart fluttering, may you know that you are not alone and that you have what you need for this moment. May you remember that we are woven together, and may you trust that you can lean into the container that mystery and community hold out to you. As your work deepens to hold what the future brings, may your intuition and discernment deepen with it. May the tenderness and grace which you offer others be available to you in equal measure. And may you remember to let joy in. Even when you feel uncertain and wobbly, may you trust your own wisdom and courage, and may you find those that can hold space for you. Remember to honor the limits of your capacity and let love always be your guide.
This reading is entitled Working Together by the poet David Whyte. We shape ourself to fit this world, and by the world are shaped again. The visible and the invisible working together in a common cause to produce the miraculous. I am thinking of the way the intangible air passed at speed round a shaped wing easily holds our weight. So may we in this life trust to those elements we have yet to see or imagine, and look for the true shape of our own self by forming it well to the great intangibles about us.
I recently listened to the final episode of one of my favorite podcasts, the NPR quiz show, Ask Me Another. And granted, I might be extra emotional from all the transitionings happening all around us and the memorial service that I had just officiated, but I ended up crying multiple times. They poured a special drink for their final episode. They brought on their favorite guests, and they spent extra time on the end credits. All the familiar voices and music and words moved me to tears. When they got to the part where they said, "And next week on Ask Me Another," there was the sound of a record scratch, and the audio shifted to the sound of a calm lake, waves gently lapping, birds overhead. The episode faded out peacefully, and I had tears in my eyes again. Change is hard, y'all. So are endings, and so are beginnings, but they are all part of life. Not just part of life, they are life. In her masterpiece, Parable of the Sowers, Octavia Butler said, "All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change." Endings and beginnings are happening all the time. We don't always notice them because if we did, our brains might break. We trick ourselves into thinking that everything is calm above the surface, but there is much more happening below the surface. Like a duck gliding on water, but kicking furiously under the surface. Even if our lives look the same as they have previously, we are constantly acclimating and adapting to new realities, learning and growing, digesting new information, and taking on new perspectives. The place where we run into problems is when we believe the lie of consistency and permanence. What's that ironic saying again? The only permanent thing is impermanence. The sooner we know and accept the inevitability of change, the sooner we can deal with those changes and adjust our expectations. I mean, we all know this, right? Our bodies change, our moods fluctuate, our friend circles shift. Every day is a beginning and an ending, a birth of new chances and a death of old regrets. And in the words of Carmela Withrich, nothing could be more terrifying, exhilarating, and unquestionably beautiful. But don't get me wrong, I know that not all changes or endings are positive. Some of them absolutely break our hearts. Death and disease, war and dementia, friendships dissolve and jobs disappear. How do we handle the onslaught of change and impermanence? How do we learn to accept endings gracefully and lean into the potential beauty and challenge of transition? What happens, for instance, while we're standing under the archway of transitional ministries? This past spring, I was chatting with the transitions director at the UUA, who told me that virtually every church is in a state of transition or an interim of sorts. Between reopening and regathering or closing again, creating multi-platform programming, every congregation was undergoing some big changes. And most congregations are also going through staff changes or will be soon. With that as a backdrop, I'm going to take you on a journey. But first, I need to explain a bit about what the BWCA is. BWCA stands for Boundary Waters Canoe Area, and it is a 1 million acre wilderness park on the northern border of Minnesota, made up on lakes and lakes and lakes, so many lakes. The park is adjacent to a second 1 million acre wilderness park in Canada called the Quetico. These 2 million acres are a wilderness park or two wilderness parks to be navigated only by foot and canoe and whatever other non-motorized vehicles you can imagine. The lakes go on for miles, and our Voyager ancestors traversed these lakes by canoe while trading furs and other necessary goods, oaring across the lake and then portaging with the canoe on their shoulders between lakes. Okay, now with that backdrop painted, picture this. Feel free to close your eyes. You're on a beautiful lake in the middle of a canoe trip to the Boundary Waters. You planned a 5-day loop trip, and you're on day 3. You've traveled a great distance, paddling across many lakes and portaging between them. The lake you are on is serene and still. Besides your group, there's not a single other person or canoe in sight. Loon calls pierce the air. You came upon this lake yesterday afternoon. Right away, you saw a moose and you knew you had found a good lake. You found and swam in a great swimming spot, and then you found a perfect campsite. You set up your tents, made a fire, and cooked dinner. You watched the sunset. Around the fire, you roasted marshmallows for s'mores. You gazed at the stars and slept under a peaceful, clear sky. In the morning, you rose early. It was foggy and cool. The water is heating up for oatmeal, and the coffee just finished brewing. As you take your first few sips of coffee, you see 2 otters swimming in opposite directions. You think to yourself, morning rush hour. Your plan today is to head back toward your entry point. You're somewhat willing to go, but at the same time you think, the next lake might be pretty. There's no way it could possibly be as magical and perfect as this one. But then again, that's what you thought on the last lake before you found this one. Something drives you forward. Maybe it's curiosity or just your acceptance that inevitably you'll have to leave each lake you encounter, no matter how perfect it seems. So you pack up camp, you organize all your gear, and using your map and compass, you set off to the next portage point. Slowly, or even begrudgingly, you come to the shore of the portage point. You transition from water to land, from paddling to walking. You do your best to divvy up all the gear amongst the people of your party. And then with canoes on shoulders and Duluth packs on backs, you make your way, trudging through the woods to the next lake. You might take one final glance back at that beloved lake. There's no way you'll find a lake so peaceful and satisfying. You turn forward again and almost get a branch to the face. Surrounded by trees, you have no idea what's in store at the next lake. You can't even see it. All you see is the front of the canoe, occasionally bumping into birch trees. But then you start to hear the water from the next lake. Maybe there's a small waterfall. You might even have a scout in your group, most groups do, who has already run ahead and scoped out the lake. It's beautiful, they say. It's not exactly like the last lake, but it's pretty neat. I already found the perfect place to have lunch. During lunch on that next lake, you're visited by a bald eagle. Some loons are nearby enjoying their own lunch. And you lean back in your hammock and think, wow, another perfect lake. You see, I learned early on in my BWCA trips not to waste my time comparing lakes against each other. Just appreciate each lake for what it provides and thank it as you leave. Your journey on one lake has to end before you can begin your journey on the next one. Maybe I'm drawing out the analogy too far here, but what I realized recently is that portages are a perfect metaphor for transitional ministries. The portages are what take you from one lake to the next. One minister or musician ends their ministry with us or goes down to part-time, but they've gotten us to the portage point. The job of those ministering in the transition is to get us safely through to the next lake. Those transitional ministers are standing between the ending of one lake and the beginning of another, holding space for the possible, for the experimental, and the liminal. I've been thinking a lot about this transition period we're in right now, this space between, and I'm realizing more and more how helpful it's been to consider the theme of thresholds. portages, archways, doors. In our second reading, Heather Plett claims a blessing for those who hold space. And isn't that all of us? She says, you are the ones who live wholeheartedly and courageously. You are the ones who dare to dive beneath the surface of human emotions. If each day is a beginning and an end, then what happens in the space between? Each moment carries the whole spectrum of emotions, and this framework is so helpful. What happens while we're standing under the archway of today? This past fall, exactly 4 hours before I officiated a memorial service, one of my closest friends gave birth to a baby girl. A beginning and an ending. You all at All Souls are on the cusp of the search process for a full-time contract minister, and you'll be thanking Judith for her years of service to your congregation too. A beginning and an ending. These last 22 months have been a major time of change and growth, of loss and newness. Your congregation is experiencing the same thing that every other congregation is experiencing. You will never go back to the congregation that you were in March of 2020. You couldn't even if you wanted to. Your staff is undergoing change. Some of your beloveds have died. Some of your beloveds have been born. Many people have probably joined your community since then. And there might even be some people who are attending this very virtual service for the first time. Change is inevitable. It's a matter of how you respond when you're in the space between. For any of you who have heard me preach before, you may remember that one of my favorite things to do is to ask you to turn to a neighbor and answer a focus question. That's not possible right now, but I can always give you the question and then ask you to answer it for yourself, or maybe even during your social hour. So here goes. Your focus question today is, when is a time that you have faced a new beginning or a big ending? How did it go, and what did you learn? When is a time you faced a big ending or new beginning? How did it go, and what did you learn? I hope you engage that question. Sometimes the constancy of change can be a little overwhelming, and we just need an anchor point. My best friend has a sailboat, and he actually told me a story about an evening this past summer while he was sailing and the wind blew him into the corner of a lake. Now, I know what you're thinking. Lakes don't really have corners. You're right. They're more like pockets of shoreline, but you know what I mean. Sitting there in the northeast cove of this lake, he was unable to get back to his anchor point. His little trolling motor couldn't overtake the wind, and he had to wait out the storm. That visual has really stuck with me. Sometimes the winds of change are just blowing too hard and we get stuck. Amidst all this change, all these swirls, rituals help to ground and center us when we are overwhelmed. We might be numb from all that's happening or submerged with the swirls of change. When our weeks blend into other weeks and our days into other days, we benefit from regular rituals. Some of them are everyday rituals, doing the dishes, meditating, right? A morning walk. And some of them are weekly rituals, like our Sunday morning services. No matter how hectic or empty or full or monotonous our week has been, we always know we can attend a service with our church community. We can take time out of time to pause and wonder, to consider things of worth and depth, to connect with others who share our values, to ponder, to question, and to engage in the mysterious intangibles that make up our world. In his poem, Working Together, David White says, "We shape ourselves to fit this world, and by the world are shaped again. the visible and the invisible working together in common cause to produce the miraculous. I'm thinking of the way the intangible air passed at speed around a shaped wing easily holds our weight. In this metaphor, I wonder how we can shape the wing so that when the wind passes by, it can hold up our weight. What shape have you needed to take in order to handle all these changing winds? What has worked for you? Our weekly UU worship services provide a potential touch point, a consistent point in time by which to measure the changes of the seasons, the turning of the liturgical calendar, and the changes happening around and within us. Every week, without fail, whether your life is chaotic or calm, we say some of the same words. We listen to beautiful music. We see some of the same fabrics and bricks like you have in Bragg, or wood here in Matamidai. And you probably started some of your own traditions about how you participate in a virtual service in your own space, wherever you are. There are definitely many trappings of our church that look different right now, but so many of the kernels underneath remain the same. Belonging, reverence, service, welcome, spirituality, justice, compassion, music. Flexibility and adaptability are the watchwords in this moment. We are in an age of reshaping and innovation. We are continuing to try new things, and we are trying old things in new ways. My hope is that we'll make the right adjustments to the shape of our wings so that we can still soar uninterrupted. As David White encourages us, so may we in this life trust to those elements we have yet to see or imagine, and look for the true shape of our own self by forming it well to the great intangibles about us. As we go about this vital work of forming the shape of our life, amidst the transitions and changes all around us, please know that you are not alone, individually or your community. There's nothing that says that you can't stick together as you grieve and change and grow together. May it be so. Amen. Final benediction from Heather Plett. You are the ones who show up and keep showing up even when grief is as vast as an ocean and fear is as unmanageable as a volcano. May you remember that you are woven together, and may you trust that you can lean into the container that mystery and community hold out to you. May you find those who can hold space for you. Remember to honor the limits of your capacity and let love always be your guide. May it be so, and make it so. Amen.
Thank you, Jack, for that thoughtful message and for your service to our movement. And thank you all for being with us this morning. We welcome everyone to gather in our Zoom room for a few moments of informal conversation and fellowship. You can find a link here in the comments or at the All Souls website homepage. Remember to put in your order today for our Sunday Plus meal next week. It will be a good one. We also invite you to send us a cell phone video to share a joy or sorrow from the past year at our service on January 23rd. Or you can drop by the church and let Angie record you. Check the website for more instructions. I hope you will plan to join us next Sunday for a celebration of revolutionary love in memory of Martin Luther King, featuring the work of Archbishop Desmond Tutu and author Bell Hooks. Until then, please everybody, take care, stay safe, and be well this week.